Today's show is sponsored by the Northern Kentucky Fly Fishers. Our club promotes the sport of fly fishing by holding seminars and educational events, participating in conservation projects, and working closely with other organizations. And we really love to go fishing. If you'd like more information about fly fishing or would like to attend one of our free monthly meetings, visit this website or call our phone number.
Wilmoth.
And I'm Harry Leidy. Welcome to Fishing on the Fly, brought to you by the Northern Kentucky Fly Fishers.
Today's show we're going to talk about how and where to get started in fly fishing.
Before we get started in that subject, we're going to talk about the types of fly fishing trips you may be able to put together and some of the advantages or disadvantages of each type.
We're going to talk about destination trips, day trips, and local trips. Right off the bat, destination trips. Long distance trips,
right.
Either fly or drive. You're going to spend maybe a week there. Big expenses, a lot of planning. You know, are you going to use a guide or are you going to go there fish blind? How's it going to work out? Like I said, a lot of planning, a lot of expense. You really kind of have to decide if you have the time and the resources to do that.
Right.
One of the easiest things to do if you haven't done those before is do what I call the all-inclusive trip. Let's say you fly to Anchorage, Alaska. They pick you up at the airport and you go fishing, and they bring you back when you're done.
Oh, that would be nice. Curb to curb service.
Beautiful trip, yeah.
Right, but it's going to be expensive.
It is, yes.
And it's going to eat up a week's vacation,
Yes.
maybe more
Yeah.
than that. So obviously, I mean, it would be a wonderful trip to do. However, it's a big commitment. It takes a lot of planning. Sometimes it takes a year's planning.
Yes.
Sometimes for a big trip like that, you have to book a year or more
That's
in advance
true,
because
yes.
they're very busy.
Just to get on water.
Right, just to get the time that you need to target the species, I guess, that you're after.
Yeah.
If that's a fact. One of the second things we're going to talk about are what we refer to as day trips. And day trips are usually within the reach of more people. I know I've probably done more day trips than I have ever extended trips. I haven't taken too many of those, but a day trip would be considered anything that you could drive to within maybe 3 hours. 3 hours, 2 hours is easy enough for everybody to do. Usually what it entails is leaving very early in the morning before sunup so that you get on the water by sunup or shortly thereafter and fishing all day and then driving home after dark, which most of us have done in the past and will continue to do because that gives us an opportunity to reach
I
water.
consider a weekend trip a day trip too, though. I mean, there's a lot of places in Kentucky where you can go, say you spend the night.
Right.
I still call that a day trip.
Yeah, it's short. You're not going to burn up any vacation time,
Yeah.
and it's easy enough to plan, and everybody can pull that off.
Gives you more time on the water.
In the tri-state area, we've got lots of opportunities for day trips or short weekend trips. Lake Cumberland, the Kentucky lakes.
Cave Run.
Cave Run Lake that's a really nice
Green
trip.
River. You've got Nolan.
Right.
There's just a massive amount of lakes within like a 3-hour drive of this area.
Brookville Lake in Indiana.
About an hour away.
East Fork Lake is just about an hour away from northern Kentucky. There's a lot of opportunity for folks to fish and spend a lot of time fishing and less time driving, which is what it's all about. I mean, that's why we go out. We want to be on the water.
Those are minimal expense trips. I mean, you're going to have the licensing fee for your out-of-state area, or if you decide to do that.
Most have a one-day license. Everybody's got a 3-day license as far as I know, so the expense is minimal. Boat rental might be something that you'd have to do if you don't have your own boat.
That's true.
Most of these places you can fish from the bank or you can wade fish. There's an awful lot of opportunity for wade fishing in the streams and rivers in some of these areas. But the third type of trip we're going to talk about is probably something that we all do all the time, virtually all year round, and that is what we call a local trip. And that would be something that would be less than an hour drive from your home, something you can do after work or if you have a couple hours before you have to cut the grass on a Sunday morning, you get away and go to a local pond, a local
county
stream.
Parks.
Yeah, the county parks all have reservoirs and they all have opportunities for access, not only wading access or boat access. Most of the big county lakes you can actually take a boat or canoe on. That's true. But they have handicap access as well. If you're fishing with somebody who does have some disability and can't wade very well or fish from the bank, most of the time they have docks and special.
Get out there and take
setups.
somebody fishing.
Right. That's
Don't forget you got the Ohio Licking River.
Oh yeah, it's easy to overlook those, but it's unbelievably good fisheries.
Yeah,
either one.
They really are.
Various species, bluegills, bass, carp, catfish, you name it, they're out there. Where do you like to go when you go for a local?
Yeah, I belong to a club. I belong to Campbell County Game and Fish, so I'll go there in the evenings a lot. I fish A.J. Jolly a lot. Or
nice.
I'll fish Kincaid Lake. Kincaid Lake's about a 45-minute drive. I mean, it's still an evening trip. You can still go out there,
pull it off
bass
for an
fish
evening.
for a little bit. Yeah,
For all
I fish the
folks
Ohio River a lot. I love to fish the Ohio River.
Now, do you wade or do you boat?
Sometimes I do. Sometimes I just from the beach. You know, there's some nice beach access, and there's just some great surf-style fly fishing on the Ohio River.
And those are the areas that are adjacent to the dams. I
Yes,
suppose,
yeah,
on the
up
river.
towards Meldal. What about
Really
you?
good. I fish close to home. Farm ponds in Boone County. I fish in a couple of places in Kenton County. I do get down towards Falmouth and fish the South Fork of the Licking River and the main Licking River.
That's a great fisher.
When the water is at the right level and it's not muddy. Really good smallmouth fishing in both those places. But Boone County has several parks, and there's fishing available in each one of the parks. Some are in streams and some are in lakes, but they're all out there. A lot of these areas you can actually research on the Northern Kentucky Fly Fisher website. We've got maps and instructions on where to access the lakes and streams, and I would encourage anybody out there interested to check that out online at the Northern Kentucky website, which we'll be showing you here in a few minutes.
Okay, we've discussed various fishing opportunities. Now let's talk a little bit about how you get started in fly fishing.
One of the things you may want to consider, it's very easy to go out and buy a bunch of fly fishing gear, rod, reel, line, etc., and take it home, and then maybe you're wondering, what am I going to do with all this stuff if you don't have any fly fishing experience? One of the things you can do is seek out a friend or an acquaintance who's a fly fisherman.
True.
And learn from them basic casting, knots, and things like that. But one of the other things you can do, and I would highly recommend, is seeking out a club. Todd and I both are members of the Northern Kentucky Fly Fishers and have been for a number of years.
Yes.
And I have to say that the club has really been responsible for me learning more and more about fly fishing, and probably saved several years of effort doing it on my own because of the skill levels of the people involved and the things that the club offers.
Yeah, I mean, you have people, you've pretty much can come to a club meeting, and you know, within the group of people that are there, you're going to find somebody that fishes a species you might be interested in. There's just a huge mixed bag of individuals who fish very different species: warm water, cold water, salt water, you know. And it's you know, between that, the classes, fly fishing, fly tying, casting classes, and the trips, it's a great way to get started. I don't recommend going out and just buying a kit. There's just too many things that can go wrong.
You can get discouraged, and fly fishing is really much simpler than you might think when you buy the gear or read the books or you watch people doing it on one of the sports shows. It's very, very simple. Casting is very easy to learn. Anybody can learn how to cast, and cast pretty proficiently in a very short while.
It's true.
It doesn't take a lot of effort, and nor does it take a lot of equipment. And we'll touch on that here shortly. But back to the club, the Northern Kentucky Fly Fishers just offer so much for anybody who enjoys the camaraderie of people who like to do the same sort of thing. We've got an awful lot of really nice members. We've got the full range. We've got blue collar folks, and we've got professional folks in the club. There's no limit as to what a person might enjoy.
That's true. Yes.
And other hobbies a person might enjoy. The fly fishing is the reason we all get together, and what we enjoy talking about and sharing ideas about, and taking trips together. And
family-oriented club.
A lot
bring
of
your
women,
wife,
a lot
bring
of
your
children.
kids. You know, we'd like to see more kids come out. You really need to pass this fishing tradition along. You know, it doesn't do any good for us just to fish with ourselves. And you know, people of our age group or older,
Sure.
you know, you're going to have this loss of the people's ability to actually enjoy something that we enjoy.
Well, sure, and frankly, if your wife's involved in fly fishing, it makes it a lot easier to put together trips and get out
does.
for a few hours at a time.
It
There's no
does.
question
My
about
wife
that.
fishes.
Oh, that's
She does.
wonderful.
I have sent her to school actually to fly fish because
Really?
I couldn't teach her myself.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Well, I'm trying to encourage my wife to fly fish more. She has been a few times with me when we've been out west, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But anyway, the club is a great resource and a great opportunity for anybody interested in learning more about fly fishing. You don't have to join immediately. We encourage you to come out to a meeting. We meet the first Thursday of every month.
That's right. The
And,
Briarwood in Boone County right now.
The Briarwood Banquet Facility in Boone County, right off of I-275. just come out, get on the website first, check us out, and then come and pay us a visit. We'd love to see you, meet you, and help you understand a little more about fly fishing.
Or if you're out there fishing, you see somebody fly fishing, walk up and talk to them. Chances are they belong to Northern Kentucky Fly Fishers. Okay, Harry, we've talked about destinations, local, day trips, long distance style, vacation style destinations. Somebody wants to get started in fly fishing, let's tell them what it's going to cost to get started.
Okay, well that seems to be the overriding cost for anybody getting involved in any kind of activity or sport. And fly fishing is not expensive, contrary to what people may have heard or seen or been made to understand. You don't have to spend a fortune on fly fishing equipment.
That's true.
The sport has been, I think, made to seem anyway kind of highbrow or kind of snooty, but nothing could be further from the truth. You don't have to spend thousands of dollars on equipment. You can get set up really, really well at one of our local tackle stores or one of the big box stores for about $100 or so.
Okay.
You can get some really nice equipment to be ready to go.
We're going to start. You're going to need a rod.
That's the first place.
I would say if just starting out, you're going to fish this area. You're learning to fish. I'd recommend a 6-weight rod.
Right, 6-weight rod, 8 foot to 9 foot, I suppose. 9 foot is probably the longest length that you would need. Most of the rods out there in the balanced packages that you would first be interested in are 8 to 8.5 foot, and a 6-weight rod will allow you to fish for virtually any species that you could catch in the tri-state, and probably any species that you might fish for anywhere in the country, with the exception of big saltwater or really big freshwater fish, like big stripers or something like that. But a 6-weight rod is the best place to start.
I agree. You're going to need a reel. Now you just can't bolt up your spin cast reel to a fly rod. That doesn't work. A fly reel, for the most part, holds a fly line. Mm-hmm. Spin reel does the same thing with a spin line, but with spinning gear, you're physically casting a weighted lure.
Right.
With fly fishing, you're casting a weighted line. Typically, your flies don't weigh, anything.
I think that's one of the first things that you have to understand when you fly fish is that it is the line, and once you understand that you're casting the line, everything falls into place and makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
What type of line would we need for that?
It's 6-weight line. We're going to do a 6-weight rod. We're going to make sure our reel's going to spool up a 6-weight line, so they're going to be matched. I would say a weight forward floating line.
Okay.
You don't need a sinking line. You don't need a bunch of different tapers and things like that. Mm-hmm. I would start out with a 6-weight weight forward floating line.
Okay, that's probably the most useful weight then,
Yeah,
as far as anything we would go after in a
exactly.
tri-state.
That'll work fine in anywhere you can fish around here. The last thing we're going to need is we're going to need a leader.
Okay, a leader is. There's really no mystery associated with the leaders. The leader is just simply what we use to attach the fly or the lure to the fly line. And they run anywhere from 7 to 9 feet in length, depending on the type of species you're going after. Mm-hmm. And you can buy a prepackaged leader. Usually they're in packs of 1 to 3 in a package. You can buy those at any tackle shop, or anybody that specializes in fly fishing gear will have prepackaged leaders on hand. And they come in a variety of tapers and weights. If you're buying an outfit, the person behind the counter can help you select the proper leader or leaders for the species that you're going after.
What weight do you fish in this area?
For bluegills and bass and smallmouth bass and things like that, I fish about a 4X or 5X leader at the max. But probably 4X would be good all around. Would that be about 6 pound maybe?
About 5 to 6 pounds.
5 to 6 pound.
Depending on the manufacturer.
You can catch typical size bluegills and nice size smallmouth bass, and unfortunately the average black bass that I catch doesn't rarely go over 1.5 pounds or 2 pounds, but all those can be caught on a leader of 4X or 5X.
Okay. We're going to take a short break for a public service announcement from the state of Kentucky. Stay tuned. When we get back, we're going to have a guest. It's going to talk about bluegill fishing. And bluegill fishing, especially in this area, that's a great way to start out your fly fishing.
Great, really great way to start.
Did you know 1 out of 4 Kentuckians hunt or fish? And in the course of a year, over 1 million people get out and enjoy Kentucky's waterways and go fishing.
One of the things that I think Kentucky is privileged to have is the diversity of fisheries we have in this state. And we have 20 or 21 major reservoirs, 150 public-owned lakes, probably 75,000 farm ponds. How big is that fish?
And why does Kentucky have some of the best fishing in the nation? Well, it all starts with the fisheries division right here in Kentucky.
There's about 90,000 miles of stream in Kentucky. We got about 330 miles, I think, of trout water in this state. So we got good trout fishing, regionally renowned trophy brown trout fisheries, also developing a trophy rainbow trout fishery.
So many major tournaments are held in Kentucky.
We got some of the best black bass fishing in this region of the southeast. Kentucky and Barkley Lake are regionally renowned for their bass populations. Kentucky holds the world record smallmouth bass. We have the third largest walleye that was caught in this country. We have one of the top 10 muskie lakes in the country in terms of catch rate. Crappie are number 2 species in Kentucky. We've got excellent crappie populations in all our reservoirs. We have bluegill. We have rock bass in a lot of our higher gradient streams. They're all good table fare fish, and we got fairly liberal limits on all these fish.
With over 400,000 acres of water and 97,000 miles of streams, plenty of room for everybody.
Our job is to serve. We work for the angling public. We're always looking for new projects that enhance fishing and boating opportunities in this state.
Welcome back. We've been joined today by our special guest, Jim Blaisdell. Jim is a member of the Northern Kentucky Fly Fishers, and he's going to tell us a little bit about himself and what he enjoys fishing for. Jim?
Thanks, Harry. Yeah, a little background on myself. I grew up mainly fishing in the Ohio River Valley here in southern Indiana, northern Kentucky, most of my life. For about 30 years, I did spin fishing in small lakes and streams in some of the reservoirs in southern Indiana and in Kentucky. About 5 years ago, I got into the sport of fly fishing, thanks much to the Northern Kentucky Fly Fishers. I found that club and got involved and started learning the sport through Northern Kentucky Fly Fishers.
Great.
But yeah, I've come to enjoy fishing for bluegill. Early on, when I first started fly fishing, I mainly looked at fishing for trout.
Right.
And I went on a few of the trips.
Yeah, we all did.
Club, and
Yeah.
I still love fishing for trout. It's great. There's nothing like a mountain stream and
Just not a lot of
clear
trout around
water
here.
and a beautiful rainbow fish. Nothing like that. But what I found is that around here, if you've got some limited time or you've got a tight schedule, the bluegill is just an outstanding fish for fly fishing. Particularly if you do like fishing for trout, you can use a lot of the same gear
Right.
for bluegill.
Yeah, that's convenient.
Now, Jim, you recently had an article published in the newsletter. I mean, a great article, very, very detailed on bluegill.
Yep.
We've got a lot of species here in this area. Why bluegill?
Well, kind of as I mentioned, bluegill are kind of a nice alternative to trout. Also, bluegill are basically everywhere. They're in local neighborhood ponds, some of the local lakes, tributaries of the Ohio River.
Rain puddles on the sidewalk.
literally
They're just everywhere.
Yes,
I think
they're
you'd have a hard time finding a lake that doesn't have bluegill.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
right.
A lot of
That's
them.
right.
A lot of
and
them.
again, as
usually.
I found the last few years, I've had some limited time, and some days I only have a few hours to fish, and I found that the bluegill is just outstanding because you can pick about any body of water and go target that fish and have a great day.
Terrific.
Yep.
Terrific. What about equipment now? We talked about the type of equipment that somebody just starting into fly fishing should be looking at, and that was a 6-weight rod, 8 to 8.5 foot long. Is something like that a good setup for fishing for bluegill?
It's a great setup to get started with. Yeah, a lot of the books and information I've read on the sport also recommend 6-weight. It allows you to use the floating line pretty well, but it also, if you get more advanced into it and you want to use some sinking lines, it allows you to use that as well. But yeah, it's a great rod weight to start with.
Now, do you fish with a 6-weight?
Actually, I use a 4, mainly
Okay.
because, again, I got into this sport thinking it was only for trout.
Right.
But when I found out it was, you can basically fish for any species, I got more excited. And then, again, as I started fishing more local and getting into the panfish and some of the bass even, it just is exciting because I can do it more often and do it with just a few hours of time.
Yeah, I fish with a 4-weight. If I'm specifically going for bluegill, I'll take a 4-weight.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's a much better fish.
Yep.
It's the 6-weight's, it's a little much for it. I mean, it's fine for it, but if you get a nice bluegill on a 4-weight rod, it's saltwater fishing. It's marlin.
Well, and
Put
the
gear up.
smaller
Yes, I
the
would
smaller
agree.
the fish, the lighter the rod. I mean, and that's how you you adjust the rod to the fish. But a 6-weight is a good starting point for anybody, and it'll cover a spectrum of species without any
correct.
problem.
That's
The
correct.
4-weight will go bad on you if you hook up with something else.
Yeah, it could be an exciting
exciting
event.
It's realistically easy to break gear
Yes.
if you hook up something else
with the
other than
with
a
the
bluegill.
unbalanced
with-
rod to the species you're
with
fishing.
going light.
That's right.
Well, now that we know that a 6-weight rod is a good place to start, and bluegill is a great species to target, what type of flies do you actually like to use when you're out there for bluegill?
Well, again, that's kind of the simplicity and the beauty of fishing for bluegill. It's a very basic set of flies. You've got floating poppers and some of the dry flies used for trout fishing. Those work great for bluegill. Also, you get into some floating and sinking spiders, and also the woolly buggers, which most people are into fly fishing. You know, that's a world-class
It's a standby.
fly to throw for anything that's swimming in the water. But if you use those three, I mean, you really can't go wrong. And the poppers, you can buy those at any store, specialty fly shop, as well as some of the big market stores. Poppers are great in the spring. Just about, you can fish and catch lots of bluegill with poppers in the spring.
Right.
As you get into the summer and the fall, sometimes you gotta rely on some of those other baits like the woolly bugger.
Something
Some
that
of your
sinks
trout
a little
patterns
bit.
to get a little undersurface there, because once the fish move off the nest, it's a little more tricky to entice them to take the fly.
Right. So for topwater action, and as bluegill season is when the dogwoods are blooming,
That's
the
right.
bluegills are hot and they're starting to hit.
Yeah.
They're into
That's right.
shallower
Actually,
waters.
right now is getting into the
Getting
start
close.
of
We're a little late, I
outstanding-
think, because of our weather.
We're a little late, that's right. But
But-
typically mid-April, late April is when you can start fishing.
Water
and then-
temperatures are coming up.
Yep, and then they usually stay on the nest through like early to mid-June. And it's just once in that time period, you can pretty much throw anything in the fly box. And if you're tossing the fly through the nest area, you're going to be on fish. And
Great.
That's exciting.
Very, very
Yep.
good.
Okay, folks, we've got a short clip we want you guys to check out. It's another member of NKFF doing some bluegill fishing. Enjoy.
All right, now we're going to do some farm pond fishing. I'll show you the techniques and the fun of catching fish in a farm pond. We're fishing out here this morning. I got one of those little boogers on, like we showed you earlier. We're going to cast down here, coming right at you as a matter of fact. Down with some big bluegill down in here. What I'm doing is just stripping this real gently. And anytime I'm tugging the line between my fingers here, that's stripping. So I'm just making short strips, just kind of creeping that fly along through the water. And we'll see what we can catch. As you can see, casting isn't hard. You know, you got plenty of clear area around here. And all I'm doing is making short casts back into this little area here. Hoping to catch up with a bluegill or maybe a small bass. See what we can come up with. And you can vary your retrieve. You know, and I'll change it up a little bit. You know, longer strips, longer pauses, depending on how things go. There we go. All you do is stripping line in through your fingers. You don't use the reel for anything unless you get a really big fish. You won't need it. It's mainly there for line storage. Now I got him fought in almost to the end of the butt section of the leader, and I'll stop there and play him a little bit, and then go ahead and bring him in. Now I've mashed the barb down on this hook like we talked about before, and you saw how easy that comes out of the fish's mouth. Makes it nice and simple. Also makes it easy to get out of the back of your head. I'll go ahead and release this. As you can see, we're not casting all that far. You don't have to be a great caster to fish farm ponds. 40 feet maximum is all you need. It's not a tremendously long cast. It doesn't take a lot of skill. It's a great place to start, a great place to work on your casting and your technique and your fishing at the same time. That's part of the fun of it. The best practice is fishing. Sometimes give it a little pause, just like that. Nice fish. Big bluegill. That's a good one. Come on. Right now I'm wishing I had more than 4-pound tippet on there. There we go. That is a chunky bluegill. That right there is why I got into fly fishing. And that's why you mash your barbs down. It just popped right out. That is a bluegill big enough to lip like a bass. That makes a good sized fish. Good fight, lots of fun on a fly rod. You gotta give it a try.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that video clip. That's what I call bluegill fishing. We want to remind you, Northern Kentucky Fly Fishers meets the first Thursday of every month at the Briarwood Banquet Facility in Hebron. Come join us as a guest. I'll guarantee you, you're going to have fun. You'll learn something about fly fishing. You may or may not want to get into it. Come out and give us a try. For more information on the club, check us out on our website or on this phone number.
And we definitely love guests to come. I came as a guest 5 years ago and quickly got acclimated to the sport. Picked up a lot of good tips very, very quick. And as I mentioned earlier, we focus on more than just trout. It's just about everything you can catch on a fly rod that swims.
For all of us here today, Jim, Todd, myself, and the crew, we'd like to thank you for tuning in to our show. We hope you really enjoyed it. And we'd like to ask you to stay tuned for the award-winning show, Backwoods Outdoors, starring Chris Niehaus. I'm Harry Leidy.
Jim Blaisdell.
I'm Todd Wilmoth. Get out there and fish.
We want to wish you good fishing. And remember, please pass on the tradition of fly fishing to the next generation. If you don't, who will?
Eurasian milfoil is just one of many invasive species that are threatening our nation's fisheries. Do your part to prevent the spread of harmful invasives before it's too late. Before you leave the landing, inspect, clean, and drain your boat, motor, and live wells. Properly dispose of any invasive species you find. That includes dumping, not releasing into the water, your unused bait. Hey, remember these 3 simple steps. Inspect, clean, and drain. Do your part to halt the spread of invasive species.